This walkthrough will demonstrate how to create a software tutorial from a series of sequential recorder captures. The tutorial will be created from 8 separate recorder captures, with each capture sequentially cleaned up in the Camtasia editor as the composite project is assembled. I'll begin in a new instance of Camtasia by loading one of my template projects. So that's Alt-F, down arrow, Enter key. I'm going to load this one here, select it, Enter key. This particular template only has items on 2 tracks. Well, track 1 is a series of placeholders. They're all configured the same way. If I select the first placeholder, go to its audio properties, you see it's carrying a property of 250% gain. If I go over to cursor effects, you can see that there are a number of cursor effects pre-assigned to the placeholder. All the placeholders here have exactly those same settings. We're going to be screencasting to create a tutorial for this little application. In order to get started, we're going to launch Recorder and make sure its settings are correct. So I'll launch Recorder using a taskbar icon. Once it's open, I'm going to go to Tools, Preferences, and I want to make sure that I've got it set so it's not captured on screen, that it will open the editor after recording is stopped, and that it will automatically minimize the window once I start a capture. So that looks okay. Also, make sure that Rev is disabled. At this point, I would start my first capture using F9 and begin the narration of the first capture in the tutorial. So it's F9, start narration. To enter a new meal from the main menu, click this command button. When the main form opens, a drop-down will be exposed. At the drop-down, click on Meal. At the next drop-down, we'll click on Breakfast. We'll be entering a breakfast meal. Notice that a default name for this meal is provided. If we want to, we could just start typing and overwrite this with another name. Also note that the current date is in the name. If we want to change that, we can do so by changing it in this control here. I'm going to accept the default name. I'm going to use the Tab key once, which puts me on this tab here, Nutritional Data. I'll use Tab key again, puts me in the Quantity column. Tab key again in the Measure column. Tab key again puts me in the Ingredient column, and note that the drop-down has opened up. At this point, I'm going to end this first capture with F10. I'll call this capture 01, and then I'll save it with the Enter key. That puts us back in the Camtasia editor. Our first capture has been put in the bin, and I will now put it on a timeline. I will select my first placeholder, then I will right-click and ripple replace into the first placeholder. I would start off by playing through this clip, listening for any errors and making any edits necessary. Most important is down here at the end if I play it. The drop down has opened up. At this point, I'm going to end the first capture. Now I have to get rid of this extraneous narration that I picked up that's at the end of this clip. So Control-Shift, Alt, right arrow, Control-X. And at this point, I will select my second placeholder, Alt-Tab, go back to my application, and I'm ready to start my next capture in the sequence. I have to first set this guy up the way I want him to look, And before I interact here, I need to start the capture with recorder. So it's F9 starts the capture. The next 7 captures will be silenced with clip speed adjustment applied. F10, I would call this O2, enter key. The editing will also be silenced with clip speed adjustments applied. Alt-Tab, go back to my application, get ready to screencast the next ingredient. Once again, I have to start the capture and then configure this before I start my narration. So it's F9, F10, and I would call it O3, enter key. Alt-Tab takes me back, grab the application, and I'm ready to do the next one. At this point, I would start the next capture with F9, F10, call it O4, enter key. Alt-Tab, select, and we're ready to continue from here. Once again, I will start the next capture in recorder with F9, F10, that'll be O5, enter key, Alt-Tab, back to the app. And at this point, we're ready to start our next capture with recorder. So it's F9, F10, and this will be O6, enter key. Alt-Tab, select the application, and we're going to start our capture, which will enter our last ingredient. So we'll do F9, F10, and it's O7 for a name, enter key. And that takes care of the captures that were necessary to document entry of the ingredients that were in that meal. Once again, we'll go back to the app, Alt-Tab, we'll select it. Now I want to finish off the capturing for this particular tutorial. I don't need to configure this, I can just start narrating. So we'll just start the capture with F9. F10, and this should be O8, enter key. And that pretty much takes care of putting that tutorial together from that series of 8 little captures, with all the captures on the timeline and individually edited. Final touch-ups are made to the project before production. That completes the editing process. We're now ready to produce and archive.